In order to unlock the technology system, Zhou continuously controlled scores, resulting in differential treatment among school teachers and classmates. He, who used to have top-notch grades, has become a second lowest ranked student. After failing the college entrance examination, he successfully activated the system and handed over nuclear wastewater treatment technology, shocking the world. Chapter 1. Score Control. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. At noon on August 24, Japan officially discharged nuclear wastewater into the ocean. It is expected to discharge 200.210 tons of nuclear wastewater today, exceeding 1.3 million tons, and is expected to be discharged for 30 years. The nuclear wastewater discharged by Japan may arrive along the coast of China in 240 days, posing a serious threat to the health and safety of the Chinese people. The news broadcast is being broadcast on the LCD TV hanging in the classroom of Class 7, Senior 3, Shernan No. 2 Middle School, Mordor. All the students sitting in their seats, watching the news, were filled with righteous indignation and immense indignation. These little days are so damn, they're not human. They've even poisoned the whole world. Why don't you kill them? What else do you say about the discharged nuclear wastewater being treated and not contaminated? Since there is no pollution, why not let their own citizens drink it or discharge it into their country? These days of dog days have greatly ruined my conscience, and it's really bad to the bone. Those nuclear wastewater will flow along the ocean currents and reach the coast of our country in just over 200 days, polluting the coastal waters of our country. Isn't China's seafood industry going to be severely impacted by that time? Damn it, little boy. Isn't it our country's seafood industry? The nuclear wastewater discharged by Shaotian has been detected to have more than 60 types of radioactive substances exceeding the standard. These radioactive substances will circulate through the atmosphere, pollute all parts of our country through precipitation, and in the future, more people will suffer from cancer and various strange diseases. Mad, this earth may not have Shaotian, but it cannot be without the ocean. Just as everyone in the class was emotionally excited and discussing the pollution of nuclear wastewater, insulting and cursing our childhood, in the last row, by the window, a handsome boy was burying his head, brushing through his test paper. He heard the news about the discharge of nuclear wastewater during childhood. He also heard the discussions among the classmates around him. But these things have nothing to do with him now. In his eyes, there are only a series of test questions on the exam paper in front of him. After the news was released, the homeroom teacher Qing Lixian, who was standing on the podium, helped his glasses with his hand, patted the desk in front of him with a brush, and said, holding a transcript. All right, everyone, stop discussing. The results of the school-wide unified exam last time have come down. Overall, our class did well in the exams, with 38 students achieving a score of 625 students achieving a score of 550. Among them, Zhou Shuiying did the best in the exam, with a total score of 688 points. She ranked first in our class and 24th in the class. Everyone in the class applauded warmly and looked at Zhou Shuiying, who was sitting in the middle, wearing a long dress and looking extremely pure, with an expression of envy on her face. She not only excels in both character and education, but also is the school flower recognized by the public evaluation of Shernan No. 2 Middle School. Countless people have pursued her and secretly handed her love letters. Every day, there are many love letters piled up in her drawer, but those love letters will soon appear in the trash can again. She ranked first in the class, with no joy on her face. Instead, her gaze couldn't help but look at the boy sitting in the last row, leaning against the wall and burying his head in the exam. Praising Zhou Shuiying, I have to mention one more person. Zhou. His grades are still as stable as ever, with a score of 450. He ranked last in our class again in this exam. We have a total of 64 students in Class 7, and only he did not score 550. Qing Lixian looked at Zhou in the last row with an extremely gloomy expression, and he was very angry. Shernan No. 2 High School, as one of the top prestigious high schools in the Magic City, has tens of thousands of people applying to Shernan No. 2 High School every year, while there are only 1,000 spots in the first year of high school. Equal to the students of Shernan No. 2 Middle School, all of them stand out from tens of thousands of people, and their grades will definitely not be too poor. Zhou, in these dozen or so exams, he ranked last in the class every time, leaving him speechless as a national top teacher. Zhou frowned as she looked at Zhou. As the top student in the class and also the school flower, she paid attention to Zhou, who ranked last time after time, because she felt something particularly strange. In his first year of high school, Zhou's grades were particularly good, always ranking first in the class and within the top 10 in the entire grade. He had never fallen out of the top 10 in his class. Even she has always been the second in the class, no matter how hard she tries, she cannot exceed Zhou. Since his sophomore year, Zhou's grades have dropped significantly. On his first exam in sophomore year, he went from being the top student in the class to the bottom student in an instant. Teacher, all the students in the class were extremely surprised. At the same time, they were also marveling at Zhou's injury to Zhongyong. His talent period had passed and he had become an ordinary person. However, Zhou didn't think so, because the scores of many exams were the same, 450 points, and the scores of each exam were not bad. You should know that getting the same score every time is much harder than getting a high score, or even ranking first in the class or in the top 10 of the grade. This requires extremely precise scoring control. She admits that she cannot do it. What is he doing this for? Is it possible that he deliberately hides his strength, hoping to wait until the college entrance examination suddenly erupts? Or is it for fun? Zhou frowned tightly and looked at Zhou, very puzzled. Zhou naturally didn't know Zhou's thoughts at this moment. He had already correctly answered the math test questions in front of him. 90 points, just passed, not much, not much. He heard the homeroom teacher's previous reading of his grades, and a smile appeared on his lips. He was extremely satisfied with this grade. As Zhou thought, Zhou was indeed precise in scoring, and extremely terrifying in precise scoring. He did this because when he first entered his second year of high school, he obtained a system called Strongest Technology. There are countless advanced technologies in the system that humans cannot yet achieve. The system requires that until the college entrance examination, his score for each exam is specified as 450 points, with no more or less points allowed. Only when the requirements are met will the system bind. If that's all, then it's not considered abnormal. What's even more abnormal is that the system also specifies scores for each subject, with 90 points for each of the three main subjects and 60 points for each of the science and engineering disciplines. This is extremely abnormal. The college entrance examination is only a few months away, so I must persevere. As long as I bind the system, I can solve the problem of nuclear wastewater discharge in my childhood and benefit the people of the whole country. No matter how difficult it is, we must persevere. Zhou, you must be able. I've been through my sophomore year and I'll see results soon. You must persevere. Zhou clenched his fist and secretly encouraged himself. In order to bind the system, he worked even harder than before. And we also have to withstand various pressures. Only he knows the pressure among them. Zhou suddenly raised her hand, stood up, and said, "Teacher Cheng, I request to change seats and sit with Zhou to help him with his tutoring." When she said these words, everyone in the class showed a shocked expression on their faces. Cheng Lixian was also extremely surprised. Even Zhou, who was just preparing to practice, looked at Zhou with incomprehension. Thinking to herself, what is she going to do? Chapter 2. Visit the hospital. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhou, any request you make can be met by the teacher, but this is not enough. Zhou has always been the last one in our class, and it's hopeless. But if your grades are so good, and he affects you, causing your grades to decline, I can't take responsibility for it. Qingli didn't even think about it and refused directly. Previously, he also had great admiration for Zhou, but for some unknown reason, Zhou's grades plummeted instantly. He also thought of many ways, but it still didn't work. So he cannot let Zhou affect Zhou Yingyu's grades. Teacher Cheng, I sincerely want to help Zhou. You don't have to worry about my academic performance being affected, and no one can affect me. But with my help and guidance, Zhou may have a significant improvement in grades and no longer hold us back in class. I hope you can agree. Zhou Yingyu insisted extremely. Qingli thought for a moment, then nodded and said. The teacher can promise you to sit with Zhou, but if your grades drop a bit during the exam, I will have to move your seat back. Zhou, even if Zhou Yingyu is so kind to help you, you should also strive to learn by following his example. He originally didn't want Zhou Yingyu to sit with Zhou, but he still felt the same way that Zhou could transform and return to the learning state of his first year of high school, becoming an excellent student that made him feel proud as a teacher. Zhou Ying patted her head and immediately moved her desk towards Zhou's side. A boy immediately stood up and took the initiative to help her move the table. All the boys in the class were extremely envious of Zhou, but they couldn't understand why Zhou Yingyu took the initiative to change seats and sit with Zhou. As the last person in the class, what is there about him that attracts Zhou Yingyu? Zhou sat in his seat, not to mention he took the initiative to get up and help Zhou Yingyu move the table and books. He didn't even look up, he was still facing the exam paper. Zhou Yingyu sat next to Zhou and glanced at the science comprehensive exam paper he was working on. She didn't speak or greet him, picked up a set of math questions and glanced at it. She showed a cunning expression at the corner of her mouth and placed the test paper next to Zhou, saying, "Can you answer this question for me?" Zhou didn't speak. He took the test paper and looked at the final big question marked by Zhou Yingyu. He looked at the question and didn't even think about it. He picked up his pen and quickly started writing. But halfway through, he immediately stopped writing, frowned tightly, and turned his head to look at Zhou Yingyu. Zhou Yingyu took the test paper, looked at the question she marked, and then lowered her head to write on it. After finishing, she placed the test paper between them. The solutions of the above two answers look exactly the same. Upon closer inspection, Zhou's problem-solving approach is more detailed and refined than hers. Zhou Yingyu looked at Zhou with a furrowed brow and a cold gaze. She took out the answer to the test paper again, circled the answer with a pen, and placed it next to the test paper. The answer written by Zhou is exactly the same as the answer on the test paper. This question has already exceeded the scope of high school mathematics and belongs to a serious problem that exceeds the outline. When I was working on this question before, I thought about it for over an hour before completing it all. You just looked at it and wrote the same answer as the standard answer, which has proved my guess. You are indeed precisely controlling the score. Zhou's eyebrows relaxed as he ignored Zhou Yingyu and lowered his head to start the question. Even if someone discovers the secret of his precise score control, it's not a big deal. After all, the system has no regulations, and others cannot know his secret. And as long as he ensures that every exam meets the requirements of the system, he can bind the system and obtain various advanced technologies inside the system. The most crucial thing is that Zhou Yingyu and the others have no way of knowing that he has a systematic matter, and he will definitely not tell anyone this secret. No one will know. The reason why I am willing to move my seat over is because I guess that you are precisely controlling the score, treating it as a fun game to entertain yourself and challenge yourself. And don't worry, I don't have your bad taste. I just want to see your true strength and work hard with you. After all, you are the goal I have always wanted to surpass, both before and now. I am looking forward to your amazing performance in the college entrance examination and showcasing your abilities, but I will not lose to you either. Zhou Yingyu tilted her head towards Zhou next to her. Zhou ignored her completely and continued to work on the questions, while Zhou Yingyu couldn't see the day when he showed his strength. Because he doesn't need to showcase his own strength, his ambition is to gain a system, help the people of the whole country, enhance the country's technological strength, and make his country's technological strength far exceed that of the world. No matter how hard Zhou Yingyu tries, she will never achieve this ambition in her lifetime. Zhou Yingyu was not angry because Zhou ignored her. On the contrary, sitting next to Zhou made her more determined. She has always wanted to truly surpass Zhou. She also picked up the test paper and began to brush it up. After school, Zhou tidied up his textbooks and walked straight outside the classroom. Throughout the day, he didn't say a word to Zhou Yingyu. And on this day, besides going to the bathroom, he was just doing some exercises. Enter the community. Sitting on a wooden chair, chatting leisurely, the elderly saw Zhou walking over with a backpack on his back, and their mouths began to crack as they began to discuss. What's wrong with this kid from the Zhou family? My grandson is in the same class as him, and I heard that his academic performance has plummeted. He has already taken the exam many times and ranked last in the class. Who knows? What a pity. This kid has been smart since he was young, and his academic performance is also very good. But I don't know what kind of evil he fell for, and his studies suddenly stopped working. Is there anything dirty on him? There's no such thing as that. It's because this kid has put his mind elsewhere and delayed his studies. He can't be dating, can he? Zhou ignored them and went upstairs straight home. Go home. Jiang Shuhe was wearing an apron and cooking in the kitchen, while Su Jiangwo was sitting on the sofa watching TV. Mom and Dad, I'm back. Zhou called out to them and immediately returned to his room to start practicing the questions. Son, come here and Dad will chat with you. Su Jiangwo sat on the sofa and shouted to him. Jiang Shuhe brought out the vegetables, placed them on the table, and also untied her apron, sitting on the sofa. Zhou came over, sat on the sofa, and looked at them. Su Jiangwo looked at Zhou and said, Son, today Teacher Cheng called your mother and talked about your exam results. Dad didn't mean to blame you. You do exercises and review homework every day until 2 or 3 in the evening, and your parents can see your efforts. Dad just doesn't understand why your grades haven't improved despite your hard work. I have discussed with your mother and will give you a day off tomorrow to take you to the hospital for a check-up. Chapter 3. System. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Zhou heard that his parents were taking him to the hospital, his eyes widened and he quickly said, Mom and Dad, I really don't have any physical condition, so I don't need to go to the hospital. But son, why can't you improve your grades despite your hard work there? You work so hard every day, working until 2 or 3 o'clock every night. Your father and I both love you very much and sometimes worry about your health. If you're really not suitable for reading, then we won't read this book. Mom watches you work so hard every day, but your grades don't improve. She feels sorry for you and loves you very much. Really, son, why don't we stop learning? Your father and I will take care of you for the rest of our lives. I don't want my son to become a fool in the end. I'm the only son like you. If anything happens to you, how can Mom survive? Jiang Shuhe held Zhou's hand and began to cry with great sadness as she spoke. If Zhou's academic performance seriously declined due to other reasons, they were not in a hurry. The most important thing is that they see Zhou doing exercises every night, reviewing his homework until 2 or 3 o'clock. Many times, they feel particularly sorry for Zhou, urging him to not work so hard, pay attention to his health, and go to bed early. On the second day of the week, I worked so hard and every day was like that. But his exam results just keep failing. They are very suspicious that Zhou's brain has already gone wrong because he worked too hard. If that continues, they are afraid that Zhou will eventually become a fool. So they would rather not let Zhou study, rather raise him, let him do nothing, and not want him to continue working so hard, and in the end, he really became a fool. Zhou held his mother in his arms, pulled a tissue from the table, wiped her tears and said, "Mom, I really have nothing to do. You've been overthinking it. I have no problem with my brain, and I won't become a fool just because of studying. Don't worry about this. Alright, let's eat first, Mom. Let's go eat." He really can't tell them about the system, even if they are his own parents. It is also because of this that misunderstandings are caused to them. Zhou picked up his mother, sat down at the dinner table, took his food and ate it. After finishing his meal, he went back to his room, put on his headphones, gave up the music, and started practicing questions again. Su Jiangwo and Jiang Shuhe sat on the sofa, looking at Zhou's room with worried faces on their faces. They dare not disturb Zhou for fear of stimulating him. The doorbell suddenly rang. Jiang Shuhe sighed and got up to open the door. Looking at the very pure and beautiful Zhou Yingyu standing at the door, she asked in confusion, "Who are you looking for?" "Hello auntie, my name is Zhou Yingyu and I am Zhou's classmate. Now I am his desk mate." Zhou Yingyu smiled and said politely, "Are you Yingyu? Zhou mentioned you before, saying that your grades were particularly good and that you always wanted to surpass her in studies, but our family's Zhou's grades. Yingyu, come in quickly." Jiang Shuhe took out a brand new pair of cotton slippers and placed them in front of Zhou Yingyu. Zhou Yingyu changed her slippers, carried her backpack, and walked in. She bent down to Su Jiangwo sitting on the sofa and politely shouted, "Hello uncle. Don't be polite, sit down quickly." Su Jiangwo smiled and said, getting up and taking a washed apple from the coffee table, handing it to Zhou Yingyu. "Thank you, uncle." Zhou Yingyu said politely. "Yingyu is really beautiful. She not only knows how to be polite, but also ranks first in Zhou's class. Your mother is so happy to have such an excellent daughter like you. By the way, Yingyu, have you eaten yet? Auntie is going to make something delicious for you. What do you want to eat?" Jiang Shuhe immediately got up and was about to walk towards the kitchen. "Auntie, stop being busy. The reason why I came to your house is not to find Zhou, but to come specifically to find you. I can probably guess that you must be worried and anxious about Zhou's grades. That's why I came here." Zhou Yingyu said. Upon hearing these words, Jiang Shuhe immediately went over and sat down, asking, "Yingyu, do you know what the reason is for Zhou? He is actually very hardworking, doing exercises and reviewing homework until 2 or 3 in the evening every day, but his academic performance just can't improve. We don't know why this is happening." Zhou Yingyu thought that it was exactly the same as what she thought. Instead of not working hard, Zhou studied very hard. "Uncle and auntie, I probably know the reason. Actually, Zhou's academic performance has not decreased. On the contrary, he studies very hard. The reason why he always takes such a score is intentional, he is precisely controlling the score. Don't be angry, Zhou may be because his academic performance is too good. Every time he takes the first place in the class, he feels less challenging, so he precisely controls his grades for each subject to a fixed score. This is very difficult, and to be honest, I can't do it. But I guess that when it comes to the college entrance examination, he will demonstrate his true strength and score a score that surprises us particularly." Zhou Yingyu said very seriously. Upon hearing these words, Su Jiangwo and Liang Shuhe immediately showed an extremely excited expression on their faces. Liang Shuhe walked over, grabbed Zhou Yingyu's hand, and said, "Yingyu, thank you very much for coming, uncle and auntie. Tell us about these things. If it weren't for you coming, both your uncle and I would have decided to drop out of school for Zhou. His academic performance is not important in our eyes. We are very worried that he will be under too much pressure, repeatedly hit, and then affect his brain because he will become a fool in his studies. But when you say that, your uncle and I can completely rest assured and there's no pressure in an instant. Zhou was working on exercises in the room, unaware that Zhou Yingyu had come to his house. Every day goes through such a cycle, and after Zhou Yingyu became his desk mate, she worked tirelessly and her grades continued to improve. Zhou still scores 450 on every exam and has never changed. The college entrance examination is coming soon. On the evening of the score check, Zhou locked a person in his room. He sat nervously in front of the computer, logged into the score check website, entered his ID card and exam number, and quickly grabbed a book to block the computer screen. He nervously moved the book down and his heart started beating rapidly. Language: 90 mathematics. 90 English. 90, this is the last step. This is the last step. You must live up to my efforts over the past 2 years, please. Zhou's heart pounded rapidly, his hands trembling as he continued to slide the book down. Comprehensive theory. 180, wow. It's done. Finally it's done. Zhou excitedly shouted loudly in the room. Ding. The host task is completed, and the system is starting to bind. Chapter 4. Technical submission. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Upon hearing the sound of system binding, Zhou's heart suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. 2 years of hard work day and night. 2 years of not being understood. 2 years of pressure. All of this, at this moment, is worth it. The strongest technology binding has been successful. Congratulations to the host for using 2 years of unremitting efforts to complete the system binding. This system contains all the technologies of humans for the next 1,000 years. System reward. The host can choose from 3 scientific technologies: machine servant technology, nuclear wastewater treatment technology, and wireless power supply. Zhou didn't even think about it and directly chose the second nuclear wastewater treatment technology. Since last year, Xiaotian's discharge of nuclear wastewater has had a huge impact on the coastal marine industry. Seafood cannot be sold at all, and no one dares to eat seafood. Moreover, the coastal oceans are heavily polluted. A few months ago, researchers discovered a large amount of radioactive elements in seawater sampling inspections from coastal areas, posing a serious threat to the health of hundreds of millions of people in coastal areas. Successful reward for nuclear wastewater treatment technology. Zhou immediately felt that he had a lot of advanced scientific and technological knowledge in his mind. Bang bang. The room door was quickly knocked on. Zhou heard his mother shouting outside and immediately went over to open the door. Son, did you do very well in the exam? Jiang Shuhe and Su Jiangwo were particularly excited when they saw the joyful expression on Zhou's face. Since the last time Zhou Yingyu came to their house and told them about Zhou's concealment of strength, they have all been relieved and full of confidence in their own son. They walked excitedly to the computer, and when they saw the results on the computer, their eyes widened. The person suddenly became foolish. Well, this grade hasn't improved much either. Su Jiangwo turned his head and looked at Zhou with a puzzled expression. Seeing the joyful expression on his face, he exchanged a glance with Jiang Shuhe. It's okay, son. It's highly likely that your score has passed the undergraduate admission line, so it's considered acceptable. Hello, relax and unwind. Tomorrow, your parents will take you to have a delicious meal, and then our whole family will go on a trip for a while. Jiang Shuhe was afraid of stimulating Zhou, so she smiled and asked him to speak softly before walking out with Su Jiangwo. Old Zhou, what should we do? I don't think my son's mental state is right. He can't really accept the blow. What's going on? If something happens to my son, I don't want to live anymore. Jiang Shuhe immediately began to sob softly. Ah, what's wrong with my family? My son used to be so smart and had good academic performance, but now he's completely mentally abnormal just because of his studies. Wife, don't worry. Tomorrow, let's take our son to the hospital for a good check-up, and then take him on a good trip outside for a while to relax and unwind. Later, I'll call Lao Song and ask for half a month's leave. For the sake of my son's health, this job will be fine even if it's gone. Su Jiangwo said very seriously. At this moment, the doorbell rang. Jiang Shuhe walked over, opened the door, and looked at Zhou Yingyu at the door. Her face immediately showed a joyful expression, and she invited Zhou Yingyu in. Uncle and aunt, did Su Zhou also check his score? How did he do on the exam? Zhou Yingyu sat on the sofa and asked them. Su Jiangwo and Jiang Shuhe both had a worried expression on their faces. Jiang Shuhe glanced at Su Zhou's room and whispered. Oh, let's not talk about it. He scored 450 in the college entrance examination, which is not very good. However, it doesn't matter anymore. His father and I don't care about his grades anymore. We're planning to take him on a trip, have a good time, and relieve his pressure for the past 2 years. What? It's another 450 points. That's impossible. I've been sitting with Su Zhou for several months, and he's been working so hard and so impressive. I completely see it in my eyes. This is the college entrance examination, the most important exam in life. He should no longer hide his strength and continue to control his scores. Zhou Yingyu's face was full of surprise, and she was also confused now. She wondered if she had guessed wrong from the beginning. Is Su Zhou not controlling points, but rather his strength is like this? But this is also impossible. He used to score 450 on every exam, but now his college entrance exam score is still 450. How could such a coincidence happen in the world? But if Su Zhou really controls the scores in the college entrance examination, why would he do so? What is the significance of doing this? Zhou Yingyu couldn't figure it out. Yingyu, you should have done well this time, right? Do you have a dream university? Jiang Shuhe smiled and asked about Zhou Yingyu's concern. Zhou Yingyu awkwardly smiled and said. Auntie, I did pretty well in the 689 exam. Tsinghua University and Peking University also called me in advance, but I don't plan to go. I'm planning to go to Moda University of Technology, which is closer to home. I'll go see Su Zhou, uncle and auntie. After she finished speaking, she got up and walked toward Su Zhou's room. Opening the door, she saw Su Zhou sitting in front of the computer, writing something. Zhou Yingyu stood next to him, looking at the densely packed equations written on the paper. She frowned and said. I really don't understand why you did that. Your academic performance is clearly very good, and this college entrance examination should also be better than mine. But why do you have to control your scores on the most important exam in life, the college entrance examination? Do you know, uncle and auntie, that you've been heartbroken about your affairs, and that's how you treat your life as uncomplicated? Su Zhou wrote the equation for treating nuclear wastewater technology in his mind and turned to look at Zhou Yingyu, speaking calmly. Your college entrance examination results should ensure your admission to Tsinghua University and Peking University, right? Which one are you planning to choose? Zhou Yingyu was originally quite angry, but when she saw that Su Zhou was really calm, she became confused and said. Those 2 schools called me a few days ago, but I'm not planning to go either. I want to apply to Magic City Institute of Technology and be closer to my parents. Su Zhou put the pen in his hand and leaned his back against the chair, feeling a bit distressed. I scored 450 in the college entrance examination, but which university can I attend? It's really a bit troublesome. If you take the exam normally, you can easily attend Tsinghua University, Peking University, and Peking University. But you have to waste yourself. I really can't figure out what you think. You're such a person, I really can't figure it out. But the college entrance examination has ended, and we probably won't see each other again in the future. I still hope you can do well in the future. I'm leaving. Zhou Yingyu is no longer entangled. Her life trajectory is already parallel to Su Zhou, and there is a high probability that there will be no intersection in the future. She went out to say goodbye to Su Zhou's parents and then left. Su Zhou suddenly stood up and looked at the unfinished equation on the paper in front of him, saying, "If I entrust the technology for treating nuclear wastewater to the country, can any university let me choose? Moreover, even if I develop this technology, one person's power is far less powerful than that of a country. Yes, submit to the country and get a new university admission letter." Chapter 5. Major Events. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Su Zhou searched and then logged into the official website of the Magic City Science and Technology Development Research Institute. After staring at the computer screen for a while, he clicked on the option to apply for project approval, filled in countless information, and half of the technology for treating nuclear wastewater in his mind was uploaded. He finished it and went straight to bed. In the past 2 years, he has been working hard every day to accurately control scores, bind systems, and study hard. He has been working hard to solve problems, and it has been a long time since he went to bed so early and so easily. Huainan Community, in one room. The phone suddenly rang. Chen Jiping, academician of the Municipal Academy of Sciences and chief researcher of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, reached out to turn on the desk lamp, picked up the phone, and placed it in his ear. "Hello. Chen Lao, I'm sorry to bother you so late. It's mainly because there's a big issue at the Research Institute. A few hours ago, our Research Institute's website suddenly received a technology application. All of us were scared, and what that person posted on the website was technical knowledge on treating nuclear wastewater. Just now, researcher Sun and more than a dozen of them all looked at it. The treatment technology passed down by that person is not the traditional method of removing radioactive substances and neutral dilution, but rather by creating a new substance. We have never heard of that new substance, but according to that person's description, it has a powerful ability to absorb a large amount of radioactive material. We have just calculated that half of the technology and it is completely correct. And the manufacturing cost of that new substance is extremely low. 1 gram can absorb all radioactive substances in tens of thousands of tons of seawater, with strong stability and the ability to degrade radioactive substances on its own without causing any pollution. Chen Jiping's face suddenly changed, and he frowned and said, "You just mentioned that there is only half the technology. What is this situation?" Academician Chen, that person only uploaded half of the technical formula. Immediately investigate the uploader's information and I will come to the Science and Technology Research Institute. Chen Jiping immediately picked up his reading glasses, put them on, and then began to dress. "What happened? Are you going out so late?" His wife Chao Hongmei opened her eyes and asked. "It's nothing, you go to bed first, and I'll go out." Chen Jiping said to her that as he walked out of the community, the full-time driver was already waiting outside. "Hurry to the Research Institute." Chen Jiping walked quickly into the research room, where dozens of people were sitting in front of the computer, operating quickly. Chen Lao, the person who uploaded the technology, is amazing. He actually discovered a substance that we have never discovered before. We calculated the formula he uploaded last time more than 10 times and confirmed that that substance can indeed absorb hundreds of radioactive substances, has strong water solubility, and is extremely stable and clean. If we can create that new substance and inject it into the sea through rainfall at sea, we can solve the marine pollution caused by Japan's discharge of nuclear wastewater and purify China's waters. Senior researcher Sun Chongwen walked over and excitedly said to Chen Jiping, "Did you find the uploader?" Chen Jiping asked. A person walked over and handed him a document, saying, "Academician Chen, the uploader has found all his information." Su Zhou, 18 years old, a native of the Magic City, is a third-year high school student in Class 7 of Shernan No. 2 Middle School. He has just completed the college entrance examination. His father, Su Jiangwo, is a manager of a financial company, and his mother, Jiang Shuhe, is a homemaker. High school seniors. Chen Jiping looked at the information in his hand and was shocked. Early the next morning, Jiang Shuhe packed up the clothes she was preparing to change for her trip, along with some daily necessities. She went out with Su Jiangwo and Su Zhou. Su Zhou heard earlier that his father was quietly contacting a psychiatrist at a certain hospital, saying that he would be taken over soon. Su Zhou felt particularly helpless in his heart. His parents really thought that he had mental problems due to studying. Walking into the community, there are many neighbors who are exercising and chatting in the community. When they see them, they warmly greet them. Su Jiangwo and Jiang Shuhe both smiled and responded. But they didn't go far, and groups of uniformed police officers quickly walked towards them, then stood on both sides of Su Zhou's house. Everyone in the community saw this scene with surprised expressions on their faces, discussing whether Su Zhou had caused any trouble. These police officers came to arrest their house. Su Jiangwo and Jiang Shuhe were also particularly nervous. At this moment, Chen Jiping walked quickly towards this side with a large group of staff from the research institute. He walked up to Su Zhou's house, looked at him, and asked with a kind smile on his face. "Are you Su Zhou?" Before Su Zhou could respond, Jiang Shuhe pulled him behind him and looked cautiously at Chen Jiping and others. At this moment, she is like an old hen protecting her own child, not allowing her child to be bullied. Chen Jiping showed a helpless expression on his face and said with a smile. "Don't be nervous, we're not here to trouble Su Zhou or your family. On the contrary, I'm here to represent the people of the whole country and thank Su Zhou. My name is Chen Jiping, and I am an academician of the Municipal Institute of Science and Technology Development. They are all staff members of the institute. As for those people, they are here to protect Su Zhou's safety. He's really amazing now. If you have time, please invite me, the old man, to your house and let's talk more about it." Su Jiangwo and Jiang Shuhe were both shocked to hear about Chen Jiping's identity and couldn't believe their own ears. Especially when he expressed gratitude to Su Zhou on behalf of the whole nation, they were even more shocked. "Of course, Mr. Chen, please." Su Jiangwo nervously greeted Chen Jiping as he walked forward. The people in the community looked at Su Jiangwo and his family with shocked faces. Judging from Chen Jiping's attire and the many people he was carrying, his identity must not be simple. But he smiled and was extremely polite to Su Jiangwo and his family. They were all guessing, did Su Jiangwo and his family meet some kind of benefactor who wanted to soar to fame? In the living room, Chen Jiping exchanged a few pleasantries with Su Jiangwo and the others, then said, "Can you let the old man talk to Su Zhou alone?" Su Lianghua and his wife looked at Su Zhou in confusion, nodded immediately, and then they were taken to the balcony outside, moving chairs for them to sit on. "Academician Chen, I understand your purpose in coming to me. You should have seen the technology for treating nuclear wastewater that I uploaded last night, which is why you came to me for the latter part of the technical formula." Su Zhou spoke directly and calmly, without any nervousness. Chen Jiping was taken aback in his heart. He didn't expect that the technology was actually uploaded by Su Zhou, and according to his meaning, he had the technical formula for the latter part. This young man, his future is limitless. Su Zhou, you should understand the importance of that technology for our country and the entire ocean. I want to ask you, how did you obtain that technology? Chen Jiping asked seriously. This is also a proposition. Su Zhou is the most fearless and skilled at solving problems. The problems he has solved are enough to fill half a room, and he is now equipped with a system, so he said calmly. I researched it myself. Chapter 6. Genius. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Did you research it yourself? It's impossible. How old are you? Upon hearing Su Zhou's words, Chen Jiping immediately refuted them with an unquestionable expression on his face. This technology may not be able to be developed by even the well-known and honored research experts in China, let alone Su Zhou, who is only 18 years old. Su Zhou looked at Chen Jiping's questioning expression, as well as his inquisitive gaze. He smiled faintly and then said, "Academician Chen, do you believe that humans, as individuals, are incredibly small in the universe and even in the vast expanse of stars, and human knowledge is also extremely limited?" Upon hearing this, Chen Jiping didn't know how to answer for a moment. He certainly understood the meaning in Su Zhou's words, but what he couldn't understand was that the young man in front of him had completely different values from ordinary people. But since he can develop such advanced technology, he must have his unique perspective. "Then tell me about it." Su Zhou looked at Chen Jiping calmly and said, "In fact, all human cognition is based on our own limited cognition. We humans cannot research anything beyond our own cognition, just like a farmer or a craftsman. Even if they exhaust all their knowledge, they cannot create a mechanical device that does not exist in their own cognition. To progress and develop, humans must have new things emerging, which are often beyond human cognition. However, once these new things appear, they will soon be mastered by humans and widely applied. This is actually a cyclical process," Su Zhou said lightly. Upon hearing Su Zhou's words, Chen Jiping quickly realized and looked at him in surprise before saying, "Do you mean that the second half of the technical formulas you have developed have already surpassed the current level of human cognition?" Su Zhou smiled lightly and said, "You can say that." Chen Jiping looked at Su Zhou with a shocked expression on his face. He had also taken care of many students before, but those students were not even as good as Su Zhou. The young man in front of me not only has unparalleled talent in physics, but may even be involved in philosophy, which is such a terrifying talent. Talent can be cultivated by nurture. A talent like Su Zhou, even if cultivated, it is not at the same level of existence. So Chen Jiping can almost be certain that Su Zhou came from a wild background without any systematic training. But he even developed the technical formula for the first half overnight. What kind of talent is this? Academician Chen, now you should understand why I am unwilling to join your Academy of Sciences, right? Su Zhou looked at Chen Jiping lightly and said, "I understand." Chen Jiping took a deep breath and said, "If you don't join, can you give us the technical formulas for the second half?" Chen Jiping's thoughts were distorted by Su Zhou, and it was only then that he remembered what he was doing today. "Sure, but the Academy of Sciences has a big family and a big business, so I shouldn't be wasting my skills, right?" Su Zhou chuckled and looked at Chen Jiping, saying, "This is nature, Mr. Su. Do you have any requirements for your research direction?" Chen Jiping also understood that Su Zhou wanted a good research direction, and his talent must not be wasted. "My request is very simple, just 2 points. Su Zhou said lightly. "Oh. I don't know which 2 points are there?" Chen Jiping asked curiously. "The first point is that I will be the leader of this project. Your Academy of Sciences will fully cooperate with me and meet all my requirements until I am satisfied. The second point is that I will not collaborate with people from your Academy of Sciences. Instead, please set up an independent laboratory for me. From the beginning of the research, all the research results will be mine." Su Zhou said lightly. These 2 requirements almost overturned the foundation of the Academy of Sciences. But upon careful consideration, Chen Jiping felt that these 2 points were very reasonable. If Su Zhou develops a new technology, then he is the first inventor of this technology. If Su Zhou cannot develop it, then he will not lose anything. One thing is that Su Zhou wants to conduct independent research, which puts Chen Jiping in a difficult position. "Mr. Su, I can reflect on your 2 requirements, but I can assure you that as long as you are willing to join our Academy of Sciences, I can appoint you as the director of the research laboratory." Chen Jiping can only say this. Zhou shook his head and said directly. No need, academician Chen. I'm not the talent your Academy of Sciences is looking for. Please don't disturb me in the future, okay? Zhou's words were very straightforward. But the more straightforward he was, the more Chen Jiping felt that Zhou was extraordinary. Okay then. Chen Jiping finally said helplessly. When he came, he wanted to persuade Zhou to join the Academy of Sciences, but now it seems almost impossible. Academician Chen, if there are no other matters, please go back. Zhou said lightly. Okay, then I won't disturb Mr. Su's research. Chen Jiping also understands that when communicating with high-level talents like them, they often end up saying a few words without agreement. Zhou was clearly unwilling to join the Academy of Sciences, and any further persuasion would be in vain. Moreover, from the first half of the technical formulas developed by Zhou, it can be seen that there is no need for him to join the Academy of Sciences again. It can even be said that if Zhou really develops the latter half of the technical formula, the College of Science will owe him a big favor. Human relationships are the most difficult thing to repay. A bad one can lead to conflicts. So Chen Jiping now understands that Zhou probably doesn't want any involvement with the Academy of Sciences. After thinking through these things, Chen Jiping no longer advised him. He stood up and extended his hand to Zhou, saying. Then I won't disturb Mr. Su. If Mr. Su needs any help, please contact me as soon as possible. As for your conditions, there should be an answer tomorrow. I hope you can write out the following formulas today. Tomorrow, I will bring the conditions you want to trade with you. Okay. Zhou nodded and then immersed his mind into the system. The formulas in the latter part can be recorded in the system. He just needs to copy them down. After tonight, he will become a researcher in the Academy of Sciences, and even lead a research project alone. Thinking about it is an exciting thing. And all of this is actually attributed to the emergence of the system. And the reason why he proposed these two requirements is actually related to the system, and he needs to complete the system's tasks. Chapter 7. Task Block. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Leading a research group alone to complete the research and development of nuclear wastewater treatment technology will earn a reward. Natural power generation energy lossless storage technology. After seeing the reward marked by the system, Zhou couldn't help but take a cold breath. Natural power generation energy lossless storage technology. If this technology really appears in Zhou's hands, it will usher in the fourth industrial revolution. The main reason why wind and hydropower, as self-ignition energy sources, have not been able to replace thermal power in power generation, is that there is no effective way to store the generated electricity. Or rather, the human and material resources required to store this electrical energy far exceed the value it can generate. If there is a technology that can store 100% of the energy, it means that humans can completely abandon thermal power and instead use the electricity generated by rivers. That is to say, as long as there is a river, humans will be able to generate electricity at will. Or rather, it's the ocean, and the most abundant thing on Earth is the ocean. It can be imagined how abnormal this technology is. However, in order to receive the reward for this natural power generation storage technology, it is necessary to first complete the research and development of nuclear wastewater treatment technology. It can also be seen as a big cake drawn by the system for Zhou. This pancake is indeed big enough and tempting enough, but Zhou doesn't know how difficult this task is. However, he believes that since the system has said so, there must be a confidence in completing this task, otherwise the system would not have imposed such conditions on him. Now Zhou is completely certain that as soon as the system task is completed, he can immediately obtain this technology. That is to say, as long as the second half of the formula is traded tomorrow and the research team is led to complete the research and development, this technology can be obtained. At the thought of this, Zhou couldn't help but feel a little excited. You should know that he is just a high school student. If he really develops this technology, then he will really become a celebrity overnight. Even in research, he can still rank among the top. However, this first step must be completed first. Completing the first step will make it easier to take over the remaining tasks. It's time for lunch now, and Zhou bought 2 dishes randomly in the cafeteria. While eating, he wrote down the formula for the latter half. Thanks to the experience gained in the morning, Zhou went very smoothly in the afternoon. In less than half an hour, he had already written all the formulas for the second half. Then Zhou spent over an hour supplementing the entire research report. With a complete 100,000-word research report as a foundation, Zhou also has more confidence. He believes that as long as he hands over the research report to Chen Jiping tomorrow, he will definitely fulfill his promise. In an instant, the next morning, Chen Jiping drove Zhou to the research site of the Academy of Sciences early in the morning and arrived at a conference room. And in the conference room, there were leaders and researchers from the Academy of Sciences sitting full, all wanting to see what people who could develop nuclear wastewater technology looked like. However, when they saw Zhou, everyone was stunned and didn't expect him to be so young. And he is also a high school student. Are you Zhou? In the crowd, a man around 50 years old looked at Zhou with some uncertainty and asked. This man was wearing a white coat and a pair of golden glasses, looking very gentle. He should be these leaders. Yes, I am Zhou. Zhou nodded heavily and then printed out the research report and formulas from his backpack, totaling more than 10 pages. He placed them all on the table. Is this the nuclear wastewater treatment technology one have developed? The man looked at the dozen or so pages of paper on the table, then at Zhou, with an incredulous expression on his face. Yes. Zhou nodded heavily again. Although he appeared calm on the surface, his heart was a bit uncertain because these people didn't seem to believe him much. Can you tell us how you came up with this research? The man was not in a hurry to read these contents, but asked Zhou. I'll start from scratch. Zhou took a deep breath and then said everything he needed to study nuclear wastewater treatment technology. He spoke very carefully, although these leaders and senior researchers in the crowd couldn't understand, no one refuted. After Zhou finished speaking the whole idea, the man applauded first and said. Hello, I am Lin Chen, the director of the Institute of Ecological and Environmental Protection, academician of the Chinese Academy of Forestry. A middle-aged man wearing glasses and looking elegant stood up and extended his hand to Zhou. I am Zhou. Zhou quickly got up and shook hands with the other party. Hello, Mr. Su. We have already made a decision during the meeting yesterday. If you are willing, you can become a specially appointed researcher at our research institute. As soon as he arrived, Lin Chen directly stated his purpose. The main task of their Ecological and Environmental Protection Research Institute is to conduct research, and if someone like Zhou, who is young enough to independently develop nuclear wastewater treatment technology, they are definitely rare talents. Distinguished researcher. I don't quite understand. Zhou frowned slightly. It's like this, Mr. Su. Our research institute's specially appointed researchers do not need to report to our school. You just need to let us know when you have research topics, and we will arrange the research location, research assistance, and financial support for you. Lin Chen also explained the uniqueness of the specially appointed researcher. In fact, the difference between a specially appointed researcher and an ordinary researcher is not too big, but a specially appointed researcher does not need to attend classes in school, just needs to focus on research. This doesn't matter to Zhou, as he had no intention of continuing classes at school. So, what about salary and benefits? Zhou also asked curiously. He still cares about this, after all, he still has to support his family. Don't worry, the salaries and benefits of our specially hired researchers at the Ecological and Environmental Protection Research Institute are very high. In addition to a fixed salary, additional rewards will be given based on your research progress and achievements. If possible, we can sign a contract. Lin Chen also quickly said that he had even thought of leaving Zhou, the big killer, at the Institute of Ecological and Environmental Protection. Okay, then please trouble Director Lin. Chapter 8. Entering the Research Institute. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Zhou also agreed. After all, this is what he is looking for, and after getting a job, he can also rightfully research nuclear wastewater treatment technology. Okay, Mr. Su, you can go to the Research Institute with me to sign the contract now. As for your family, we will have someone specially arranged to take over. Lin Chen is also very happy. He is already considering the next research of the Research Institute. With Zhou as the big killer, their Research Institute can definitely take it to the next level. After signing the contract, Jiping, you can take researcher Su to select some personnel. His project is very important, and it would be best to produce a test sample so that I can send it to the capital. You also know the situation on Xiaotian's side. Lin Chen looked at Chen Jiping and said, gritting his teeth when mentioning childhood. This thing is simply not something that humans can do. Yes. Chen Jiping also understood this point and took Zhou to sign the contract. Then he also asked Zhou, do you have any requirements for team members? Do you need someone with research experience or someone without research experience? Anything is fine, as long as there isn't much to do. There shouldn't be anyone who can help me with my research topic. After hearing Chen Jiping's words, Zhou's words carried a hint of helplessness. And Chen Jiping was also stunned, and then upon careful consideration, it seemed to make some sense. Then I'll arrange for a few newcomers with no scientific research experience, just like I'm doing odd jobs for you. Now I'll take you to your laboratory first. If you need anything later, you can let us know and we'll arrange it for you. Zhou nodded without saying much. His requirements for team members were indeed not high, as long as he could follow his command and not cause him any trouble. As for his research experience, he believes that as long as he is given enough time, he can definitely bring out a group of excellent researchers. The most important thing now is to develop nuclear wastewater treatment technology. Under the leadership of Chen Jiping, Zhou also arrived at his laboratory, where several people were already waiting. Let me introduce you to you. This is the new researcher Zhou from our Research Institute. Your next task is to follow researcher Su's instructions and cooperate with his research. Do you understand? Chen Jiping looked at the people in front of him and said. I understand. A few people also spoke in unison, although they didn't have much research experience, they also knew what kind of attitude to show at this time. That's good, researcher Su. I'll leave first. Feel free to contact me if you have any further needs. Chen Jiping was also very polite. Zhou nodded and after seeing him off, he also began to look at the laboratory. The equipment in the laboratory is quite complete, and some basic experimental equipment is available. It looks well maintained and should be usable. Researcher Su, what should we do now? A young man looked at Zhou and asked, feeling a bit eager to start his research career. You go clean the laboratory first, and then wipe all these equipment. Some unusable equipment should be scrapped. Zhou didn't hesitate at all and just gave orders. He didn't have much time to waste, and these miscellaneous tasks were supposed to be done by these assistants. A few people also worked together to clean the laboratory, which is not difficult for them. Zhou sat in his seat, opened the computer, and began to search for information. Although Zhou already has relevant information on nuclear wastewater treatment technology in his mind, it does not mean that he no longer needs to consult the information. After all, the information in his mind needs to be modified before it can be turned into a product. The financial support from the Ecological and Environmental Protection Research Institute is also very important for him, as he needs to use these funds to purchase necessary equipment. Especially nuclear radiation detectors, these things are still very expensive. Of course, he doesn't need to worry about these things. The research institute will prepare everything for him according to his needs. 3 hours later, the division of labor for several people was also completed. Looking at the newly renovated laboratory, Zhou was still quite satisfied. Su. Researcher Zhou, what should we do next? The tone of several people was stuttering, and they didn't expect this young researcher to be so ruthless and strong. They came up directly and arranged so many things for them. You go prepare some solutions, I need them to debug the equipment. Zhou also instigated these assistants, and these things were actually very simple for them. A few assistants also didn't have any nonsense and went straight to prepare the solution. After having an assistant, Zhou also became much more relaxed, and many things could be entrusted to them. He only needed to focus on research with peace of mind. However, he is still looking forward to further experiments, and if possible, he can even come up with a design plan for a nuclear wastewater treatment equipment. If it can really be produced by then, it will also be a very worthwhile thing for the entire Ecological and Environmental Protection Research Institute. Although a few assistants have little research experience, they are still very serious in their work, and they do every detail very well, which makes Zhou much more relaxed. After spending 3 hours, Zhou has also adjusted all the solutions and can now start the experiment. Zhou took out a small bottle containing uranium waste, which he had asked Chen Jiping to help prepare. He took a test tube and poured the solution into the waste uranium. At this moment, he also became nervous and didn't know what the result would be. If it fails, then he will have to readjust the solution. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 10 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes. For a full 2 minutes, there was no reaction in the solution in the test tube, which made beads of sweat as big as beans burst out on Zhou's forehead. But just as he wanted to give up, the solution in the test tube changed and began to react with uranium waste. This is a very subtle process of change, and Zhou carefully watched as the solution in the test tube reacted with uranium waste and then fused together. Looking at all of this, Zhou's face also showed a faint smile. He didn't expect this reaction to be so perfect. At this moment, his mood was also very excited, but he quickly calmed down and carefully observed everything. Everything went smoothly as the solution and uranium waste reacted violently, fused together, and ultimately turned into a new liquid. This result is a very good start for Zhou. Chapter 9. Speed. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. He also breathed a sigh of relief, and at this moment, he was very excited. Everything that followed was what he was most looking forward to. After all, researching nuclear wastewater treatment technology cannot be completed in a day or two, and this process is still very lengthy. However, with this beginning, Zhou's subsequent work also gained momentum, and the entire laboratory was filled with an active atmosphere. You guys, take this test tube to the testing room immediately. Zhou handed the test tube to several assistants, who needed to check if there was any problem with the liquid in the test tube. If everything goes smoothly, then he can proceed with mass production. Several assistants were also very agile and ran straight to the testing room with test tubes. Watching a few people leave, Zhou also opened his email and checked it. At this point, he received several emails from the Institute of Ecological and Environmental Protection, regarding the purchase of funds and equipment. He took a rough look and estimated that it would cost around 10 million. 10 million yuan is still very easy for Zhou. After all, he is the attending researcher of Huaxia, and the things he has researched can also be applied for patents. Once a patent application is successful, he will become a millionaire. However, a successful patent application still requires a certain amount of time, and it may not necessarily be successful. Watching everything go smoothly, Zhou also dialed Lu Guodong's phone. "Hello, Brother Su." On the other end of the phone came Lu Guodong's voice, and he was still very excited about Zhou's call. After all, he was the attending researcher of Huaxia. Brother Lu, I have already started here. Zhou didn't waste any time either, just went straight to the topic. So fast. Lu Guodong didn't expect Zhou's movements to be so fast. After all, he just told him yesterday, and today has already started. This is too fast, right? Well, I need to prepare some funds and equipment on my end. Can you help me push for it and try to get it in place within 2 days? Zhou also directly said that he needs Lu Guodong's help to prepare the funds and equipment in place so that he can proceed to the next step. Okay, I will do it as soon as possible. Lu Guodong also readily agreed. After all, he was the attending researcher of Huaxia, which was very easy for him. After hanging up the phone, Zhou also breathed a sigh of relief, and the next thing he had to do was wait. Quickly, 3 hours had passed, and several assistants also walked out of the testing room with test tubes in hand. Su. Researcher Su. The test results are out. A few assistants also stuttered as they didn't expect this young researcher to be so powerful. In just 3 hours, they developed a new solution for treating nuclear wastewater. Okay, I got it. Zhou also responded very calmly, saying that this result was actually expected by him long ago. After all, he is the attending researcher of Huaxia. Without certain strength and vision, it is impossible for him to become this position. Next, Zhou also took out the liquid from the test tube and divided it into several parts. His next task is to truly apply this technology to the treatment of nuclear wastewater. This process is the most crucial. Several assistants were also gathered around Zhou, curious about what the researcher was going to do. Although they were just assistants, they were also working very hard to learn. Zhou also turned on the faucet and poured the liquid from the test tube into several different containers. Watching these liquids merge with normal wastewater, Zhou was also very excited. These liquids were developed by him, and he is still looking forward to their fusion with normal wastewater. After all, these wastewater are very difficult to treat, and now with this technology, everything is also very easy. Researcher Su, can this wastewater treatment technology really succeed? A few assistants looked at Zhou's very confident expression, and they also asked curiously. After all, this wastewater treatment technology is not easy to develop, and it requires a lot of research and experimentation to develop. Don't worry, since I dare to apply this technology to wastewater treatment, then I have confidence. Zhou confidently said, after all, he is the attending researcher of Huaxia, and he has also developed this wastewater treatment technology. He is still very confident about this technology. Researcher Su, what are we going to do now? An assistant was also very curious and asked, but he was very excited that this technology could be truly applied to wastewater treatment. The next thing we need to do is observe the effectiveness of this technology. Zhou also patiently said that although this process may be a bit lengthy, it is also very crucial. After all, the quality of a technology is related to many things. Quickly, a day passed, and Zhou also found that this wastewater treatment technology was very effective, and all the wastewater was treated clean. This result also made Zhou very excited. After all, this is the first technology he has developed. He quickly recorded the result and then dialed Lu Guodong's phone. Hello, Brother Su, what's wrong? Lu Guodong was also very curious and asked. He is the attending researcher of Huaxia, and this technology was also developed by him. He is still very excited about this technology. Brother Lu, my experiment has already been successful. Zhou was also very excited and said, after all, this technology is the first one he has developed. Really, Lu Guodong was also very excited. He didn't expect this technology to really succeed, it's a very rare skill. Next, you need to take me to the nuclear power plant for further testing. Zhou said to Chen Jiping, and after hearing this, Chen Jiping also hesitated and said, the nuclear power plant is a confidential unit, and I need to apply for it. Coincidentally, you can research with other research groups in the next few days. Mr. Zhou's research group is studying the extraction of salt from seawater, and it seems that they have encountered some problems recently. If you have technical expertise, you can go and help me, and I will help you apply for the procedures to enter the nuclear power plant. Well, good. After hearing Chen Jiping's words, Zhou also nodded and hung up the phone. This matter was indeed urgent. After getting up and resting for a while, Zhou also walked out. Chapter 10. Seawater Salt Extraction and Conversion Technology. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. After leaving the lounge, Zhou followed the familiar path towards Zhou's laboratory. However, before seeing Zhou, he received another call from Chen Jiping. Zhou, the person you've seen called Lu Chuan is the latest assistant selected by Zhou Lao, so you can call him Lu Zhu. Good. After hanging up the phone, Zhou frowned slightly. Since he was Zhou Lao's assistant, he could just call him Lu Zhu. However, Zhou always thought that Lu Chuan was too young. However, no matter what, it was not Zhou's turn to worry, so he continued to walk towards Zhou's laboratory. Pushing open the door of the laboratory, Zhou finally met this well-known old man Zhou. He is about 60 years old, with a lot of white hair growing on his temples, wrinkles appearing everywhere, and a kind smile on his face. Next to Zhou Lao, there stood a young man who knew without hesitation that it was Lu Chuan. Hello Zhou. Zhou walked forward and greeted Mr. Zhou. Are you here? Come and sit down quickly. Zhou nodded and pointed to the seat beside him, gesturing for Zhou to sit down. He then turned to Lu Chuan and said, Lu Zhu, can you tell Mr. Su about our seawater salt extraction and conversion technology? Good. Lu Chuan nodded and walked towards Zhou, saying, Mr. Su, our seawater desalination conversion technology mainly consists of two steps. First, electrodialysis technology. Second, the use of multi-effect evaporation. Do you have any opinions on these two steps? Watching Lu Chuan finish explaining the principle of seawater salt extraction conversion technology, Zhou also nodded. In fact, these principles are not a secret to Zhou, but Zhou did not intend to directly come forward and discuss these matters with Mr. Zhou. Although Zhou repeatedly emphasized that these principles are not secrets, Zhou also understood the importance and urgency of them. Zhou Lao, I wonder if you have anything else to add to what I just said. Lu Chuan looked at Zhou and then turned to look at Zhou Lao. No, what you just said was quite right. Zhou nodded and pondered for a moment before saying, Mr. Su, do you have any thoughts on the difficulties we are currently facing? Zhou naturally understood Zhou Lao's meaning, so he directly said, Zhou Lao, in fact, from the problems you have encountered, the main one is energy. Energy. Zhou frowned and naturally understood what Zhou meant by energy. Yes, if I'm right, it's probably because the electricity required for electrodialysis is too high, so the cost is relatively high, Zhou nodded and said. That's right, that's it. Zhou nodded in agreement. I wonder if you have considered using some other methods to replace this method that requires a lot of electricity, Mr. Zhou. Zhou continued to ask. What else? Zhou looked at Zhou with some confusion, and he naturally understood Zhou's meaning. Yes, for example, solar energy. Zhou frowned slightly and then said, do you have any concepts about using solar energy to separate salt from seawater? Solar energy. It's a good solution, but currently we don't have the ability to implement it, Zhou shook his head and said. What if I help you design a solar-powered seawater salinity separation system? Zhou smiled slightly and looked at Zhou Lao. You. Zhou Lao obviously didn't believe it, after all, Zhou didn't look very old. Yes, it's me, Zhou nodded, not surprised by Zhou Lao's gaze. I don't know when Mr. Su can help us design such a system. Zhou, although somewhat skeptical, still asked the most concerning question. If Mr. Zhou can provide the corresponding materials and venue, then in less than a month, I can help you design a system like this. As soon as Zhou finished speaking, Zhou Lao's eyebrows twitched. That's no problem. Mr. Su, could you first give a brief overview of how you plan to use solar energy to separate salt from seawater? Although Zhou was a bit skeptical, he still asked such a question. There are actually many methods, but I plan to use the multi-stage flash evaporation method. Zhou briefly explained the principle of multi-stage flash evaporation. In fact, flash evaporation refers to heating saltwater to a certain pressure and then suddenly reducing the pressure of the saltwater to normal pressure. In this way, saltwater will form a large amount of water vapor due to the decrease in pressure, and the salt in it will remain at the bottom. After multiple depressurization, the concentration of saline water at the bottom will increase, while the vapor at the top will increase. This can achieve the separation of salt from the saltwater. And multi-stage flash evaporation is based on this foundation, and multi-stage separation is carried out again. In this way, the salt and the saltwater can be completely separated. The separated water vapor can be converted into fresh water and stored by condensation. The energy source for multi-stage flash evaporation only requires solar energy. Solar energy can heat saltwater to a certain temperature, and then separate the salt in the saltwater through multi-stage flash evaporation. The more Zhou listened, the brighter his eyes became. After Zhou finished speaking, Zhou couldn't help but nod repeatedly. Okay, what a solar multi-level flash evaporation method. Mr. Su, your move is really impressive. Mr. Zhou was able to understand the power of the multi-stage flash evaporation method. Firstly, it's about energy. If solar energy is used as energy, the cost is basically equivalent to nothing. Compared to using electricity to separate salt from seawater, solar energy is obviously much cheaper. Secondly, the benefits of multi-stage flash evaporation method. This method can greatly improve the quality of the separated fresh water. After all, as the number of depressurization increases, the concentration of saline water at the bottom will become higher and higher, allowing for the separation of fresh water with higher purity. This is undoubtedly another great benefit for Zhou and his team. Mr. Zhou praised me too much. Although this method is good, there are also some difficulties, Zhou said humbly. Difficulty? What difficulty? Zhou frowned slightly, not quite understanding Zhou's words. Although the multi-stage flash evaporation method is good, the difficulty lies in the utilization rate of solar energy, Zhou explained. Utilization rate. Zhou Lao became more and more puzzled as he listened. Yes, it's about the utilization rate of solar energy. In fact, the utilization rate of solar energy is not very high. If this problem can be solved, then we can achieve a more perfect separation of salt from seawater. Zhou nodded and said. This. Zhou Lao clearly couldn't understand.